In studio for a while this morning is City Council member and congressional candidate Oliver Jenkins. Good morning. How are you? Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. How are you? Thank you very much for having me.
During the news break, during the commercials and stuff, Oliver and Erin were talking about it. You were stationed in the Marines where you spent, a year or two in Cherry Point, North Carolina, where Erin's son is now also.
Yes, and apparently her son may be working on the aircraft that I used to fly when I was flying out of
Seriously?
Very cool.
Which was that the Harrier?
That was the EA-6B Prowler. So I flew the Prowler during Bosnia, Southeast Asia, and two other conflicts in the early stage of my career.
So you like those guys that keep
I
those...
love those guys. Are you kidding me? By the way, that's the whole way the system works. Let me make sure they take care of us.
Yeah.
It's like, what is it, the old T-shirt, don't piss off the sound guy. The same theory.
Oliver, you're a city councilman in Shreveport running for Congress. Why?
Because I care a lot about both this country and our national security. I get very concerned today that we have fewer and fewer veterans in Congress. In the 70s, almost 80% of Congress were military veterans. Today, that number is less than 20, and a large portion of that group that's there today, frankly, are Vietnam-era veterans. Not to take anything away from their service, it's just they're in the latter stages of their career. The military and our national security is a big part of the role of our federal government. Some may say the reason we even have a federal government. And frankly, not having enough experienced veterans in Washington, D.C. is a problem.
How much do you know about other things that are important? The budget, immigration, those sorts of things.
I know a fair amount about that. Now, I'm not going to pretend I know everything about the federal budget that I know about the city of Shreveport's budget, right? I spend most of my year looking at the city of Shreveport's budget. I don't do the same for the federal budget. But I can certainly say that what I've learned here is very applicable, albeit maybe with some larger zeros at the end, in a large organization. Same with working on budgets for large units in the military or running an oil and gas company locally.
The federal budget is out of control.
Agreed.
Are there some things that you would propose to do that would bring cuts? And when we say bring cuts, are you prepared to lay off some federal workers? Are you okay with that?
I think that's when personnel becomes the biggest part of your expenses. You need to look at that. Unfortunately, I come from an industry, the oil and gas industry, that when times are tough, do end up having to lay off employees. If we find ourselves in the same level of extremism in a federal budget, and that's the only option, that's something that has to be considered. I mean, that's the reality of running any organization. Certainly living within one's means, it sounds a little bit like a catchphrase, but you need to do it even at the federal level. All you're doing is passing your obligations to the next generation by piling on this debt. And we can ill afford to keep going that way.
The most controversial video from this weekend, the one that's going the most viral or going viral the fastest, is the interview that President Obama did with the woman, I think she's from MTV, who is also, to use her lexicon, an undocumented citizen, i.e. an illegal immigrant. And she asks the president, have you seen this?
I have not seen it. But
she asks the president about illegals voting. And he really does nothing to discourage that. The president of the United States, for all intents and purposes, in his roundabout way, says basically if illegals try to vote and you get caught, there won't be any repercussions from the federal government. To me, national security, especially the southern border, is number one. Stuff like that just freaks me out. How about you?
I totally agree, though. Two very different issues in my mind. First of all, being able to vote and citizenship. That's over here in this category. Totally agree. I don't understand any discussion or any logic that doesn't support checking people before they vote to ensure that they're actual citizens and, have the right to vote. National security and immigration, very different issue. Not saying it's less important. It's a very important, maybe more important, to be honest. But I'll call that a national security issue specifically.
Well, let's talk about national security then.
Okay. Anybody that comes into this country, we need a system certainly to monitor, vet, verify. I spent the weekend talking to an immigration official, former ICE fugitive I believe in the ICE fugitive ban, so immigration and naturalization. He said E-Verify is absolutely an effective way to manage the problem. We need to really work on that and really enforce it. He said, hey, I think the laws that we currently have on our books are solid. He says, but we need to start enforcing the laws and these executive edicts that sort of allow the president to tell people not to enforce the law. I mean, that's where we need to change. He's very confident we have systems in place that can be effective. But we need to start actually enforcing the law. I mean, it's a sovereignty, national security issue to have people coming into our country, not monitoring and not really sure what their intentions are. That doesn't even include those that are here, I'm going to use the term freeloading, that are using our resources that aren't contributing. I do want to make sure and say, hey, we've got to recognize that they're an important part of our labor force, that those that want to assimilate into our society, work hard, contribute to taxes, and be part of our workforce. I am all for that.
You probably know a lot about the Affordable Care Act and the increases, the prices, the steep price increases. What's the answer to that? Are you for throwing it out? Are you for making changes? What's your answer?
Okay, well, let's start first VA. Obviously, military, we probably want to start there. One thing, I do think our Overton Brooks is pretty well received. Most of my comments and times that I've been over and people that are treated there obviously are fairly satisfied. There are issues, and let's just be honest, anything with that large when you have 770,000 employees or some crazy number like that, there's some inefficiencies. I think one thing that we could do first and foremost is put congressmen into the VA medical system.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way to do it. You get in this discussion about affordable care and Congress on the Affordable Care Act. That's got a lot of issues in terms of voting and private industry involved, and that could be fraught with a lot of lawsuits. But nothing keeps us from put congressmen's health care into the VA system. First step, I think that'd be a great one. Certainly have firsthand knowledge of some of the issues.